What's going on, guys? If you've been following along, I've been talking about my journey towards freehand sharpening and the fact that I wanted to do more freehand sharpening and I wanted to build that skill set. If you haven't been watching, I will back up a little bit and kind of tell you my background. I started sharpening with a sharp maker, hated the sharp maker, just the mechanics of how the system worked didn't work for me, and then the stone selection didn't work for me. I was an idiot also, and I even bought the diamond stones and I just used too much pressure, ended up ripping all the stones out. I moved from that to some DMT diamond plates. Didn't really use those a whole lot. Ended up buying a Wicked Edge, used that for nearly 10 years, 8 to 10 years. Ended up upgrading from a Wicked Edge Pro Pack 2, one of the originals. Went through all the upgrade cycles, the arms, all that stuff. Ended up with the Wicked Edge Commercial, which I currently still have. I was still using the DMT stones a little bit, just more on my traditional knives and things of that nature. And then eventually I jumped up to, recently within the past year, 8 months to a year, I jumped up to some stones like you see here, which these are Sharpening Glass Pros, 500, the 2000, the 8000. And then I have a smooth leather strop. Don't remember where I got the strop from. It came from a Usual Suspect Network member, and some Ken Schwartz CBN. Let's see if we can get it focused. CBN slurry, 1 micron. So that's pretty much been my setup here. And honestly, I hadn't even really been going to the 2000 and the 8000. I had really been relying on this 500, which I know that is kind of an aggressive stone, relatively speaking, for this type of sharpening here. This is a super blue Giotto knife, straight from Japan. You can see here, this does currently have an edge from all of the equipment that I just showed you. I do sharpen with one hand. I have not switched over, and I don't necessarily think I'm going to switch over to using both hands, becoming more ambidextrous. I think you can see here that I think my results are pretty good for someone that's not a pro sharpener, someone that hasn't been sharpening, freehand sharpening seriously for, 10, 15, 20 years, something like that. I do get pretty sharp edges now at this point. So I do have some paper towel here, or kitchen paper as my buddy Roman says. I love that phrase. And you can see, I don't want you guys to think I'm lying to you. You can see there, very few fibers, very clean cuts. And again, it all came from the 500 grit stone, the 2000, and then the 8000. As my buddy Roman talked about in the comments when I posted this picture on my Instagram page, as you go up, especially to these grits, you want to use less and less and less pressure. One of the biggest hurdles that I had to overcome, other than the obvious, you have to maintain your angle. I really, honestly and truly, that was a little bit of a struggle with knives like this, regular folding knives that are a little bit smaller, a little bit more cumbersome to handle and hold. But with knives like this, larger kitchen knives, I did not have that much of an issue holding my angle. Really what I ran into more of an issue with was pressure. And in general, I tend to now only use, and it's become a natural thing. I don't even really have to think about it. And I didn't think about it once I kind of got past the first 5 sharpenings or so. I just use the pressure of my hand and that's it. And then once I get to the refining strokes where I just want to kind of remove that burr, or I move up in grit. And I think part of it is when you move up in grit, the stones feel so much differently, at least in my opinion, that I just tend to feel like I want to use less pressure. I don't know. I guess for me, they feel so soft and creamy that I guess I feel like I'm going to gouge the stones if I use more pressure, which these are ceramic stones. So I'm not going to gouge the stones unless I do something crazy. But that's just how I felt about it. But in general, that was my main thing to overcome, was just the pressure moving up in the grit, because I was able to get sharp knives before, but knives that were sharp like this, that were cutting paper towel, I wasn't really able to get that. But again, I was sticking pretty much with this 500 grit stone and then stropping with the 1 micron diamond spray, and it just was not getting those laser sharp edges. And this is a laser as well, meaning the grind. It's a very thinly ground Gyuto knife. So I don't know if you all can kind of make that out. I know this is a little bit of a tricky angle, but I love this knife. That's the other thing that I've kind of enjoyed about kitchen knives, Japanese kitchen knives. This is, I think this is like $120, maybe not even, maybe like $100 Gyuto knife made of super blue steel, straight from Japan, basic handle. I didn't like these handles at first, but I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, this is one of the most comfortable handle shapes that I've handled. And now, no pun intended, and now I prefer this style of handle over your traditional Western style handles. This also has a bullhorn. I can't remember what ferrule maybe is what this is called. But anyway, this is also made out of bullhorn, so it's very strong, very secure. This is a cladded knife. You can see that at the edge here where there's been some oxidation that took place. But I haven't had any issues. I don't use any strong abrasives on the knife itself. Uh-oh, let me not cut myself. On the knife itself, I tend to hand wash the knife, and then I dry it pretty much immediately. Again, with this being a higher carbon steel, you don't want to leave this knife wet because it will rust. I have not had any rust issues. So again, I have to go back to that thing I'm always talking about with rust. I think it's a little bit overblown. But back to my point, this is a very basic, fairly cheap, straight from Japan, traditional style kitchen knife, and it has performed excellently. One of the things that I've noticed when I use this knife, one of the first things I noticed when I started using Japanese kitchen knives in general, was that things like onions, your harder vegetables that you cut, that tend to kind of lose some of their crispness over time, and some of that bite, they stayed a lot more crisp, and they retained a lot of that bite a lot longer. And basically that's because you're not mashing or smashing, if you're from the north, smashing your vegetables to death, and that cut is very clean, so you're cutting through the structure of those cells very cleanly. So that's another practical benefit that I think you'll notice if you switch over to using A, sharper knives, and B, knives with a geometry that's better suited to cut certain vegetables and all. But I know I'm kind of rambling. These stones here, they work excellent for most steels, especially if you're going to use them for kitchen knives and things of that nature. So I do like these stones. Some people won't like them. They don't give you necessarily a lot of the feedback that the soaking stones will give you, but these are splash and go stones. That was one of the things that I wanted, was a splash and go stone. Like I said, I used the Sharp Maker, so I kind of preferred that harder ceramic. I even have a double stuff. I didn't mention that. So the ceramic was kind of what I was used to. They stay flatter a lot longer. I didn't want to have to spend a lot of time maintaining the stones. Over here, this was one of the best things that I moved to, was this diamond spray. On the strop, I had been using that typical Bark River compound that a lot of guys use, that chalky stuff. But really, this stuff here, even for my pocket knives, if I put a 600 grit edge on there and then I strop it a few times on this, it gives you a lot of the tooth of the more aggressive edge, but it still gives you that refinement of the 1 micron grit size. So all that said, I'm really happy with both the stones that I've chosen, the knife that I've chosen, and where my skills have progressed to. Guys, I've said this a lot to some of my buddies. If you're on the fence about learning how to freehand, you don't need, I think all of this also here, I guess I should have shown this. This came as a kit with this stand for the stones. and 3 stones. I think it was $275 or something like that. You don't have to go out and buy something that expensive. I know that is quite expensive depending on where you're at in this hobby. You can simply go out and purchase one of the king combination stones for like 50 or 60. I think there might even be 30 bucks. I'll say 50 bucks. But you can buy one of those king combination stones. I think it's 1,000 grit on one side and 5,000 on the other. That will be more than enough to get you started, and even more than enough just to use practically for all intents and purposes. And you can have everything you need for 50 bucks. You can set your stone up on anything that you have in the kitchen. I've even seen guys use a brick if that's your style. You don't need anything fancy. Just go out there, get started. I think you will see the rewards and the benefits of freehand sharpening. The control you have is infinite. You have a lot more choices of stones. You have a lot more choices of grits. Just on and on and on. I mean, you can carry these stones around a lot easier than I can carry around my Wicked Edge, any Wicked Edge or any guided system. I can slip 1 or 2 of these stones in a little pouch or something and carry it around, and I can literally just lay this stone on my hand and sharpen if I needed to. So yeah, I'm becoming more and more of a proponent of freehand sharpening, and I am enjoying the process of freehand sharpening, and I look forward to continuing this journey, because that's the other thing. Freehand sharpening is a journey. You never fully master. You just continue to go down a rabbit hole. So that's another thing. You can kind of cut off where you see fit, but I highly encourage you guys to go out there and just start if you are interested in freehand sharpening. But I appreciate you guys watching. I will catch you all in the next video. Remember, a lazy man carries a dull knife, and don't be a dumb person with a smart